Let's get started.
Let's get started.
So I'm afraid I'm going to be dropping off the chat now. So you can talk away to yourselves, but Katie, let's get going.
Let's get going. Well, thank you everyone for joining us this afternoon if we're here in the UK, but obviously we've seen that some of you are joining us in your evenings and in your mornings as well. So thank you, whatever time of day it is where you are. This is our final session of Quality Careers Week. So it's lovely to see so many of you here with us, especially those whose names we recognise as having propped up throughout the week. We're going to hand back over to Gareth in a moment. Gareth is our Head of Professional Development here at the CQI and is going to talk through some of the platforms, tools and facilities that we have available here at the CQI to help support you in managing your quality careers. If you've attended sessions throughout the week, you'll have seen some of the research that we've done already, some of the award winners that we've met along the way, and heard some insights from recruitment agencies in terms of what people hiring quality professionals are looking for. So hopefully this will help bring some of that together and tell you exactly what the CQI has available at our disposal to support our members. So without any further ado, Gareth.
Thank you, Katie. Yeah, delighted to be here. Thank you, everybody, for coming along, particularly those of you who are staying up into the late hours where you are. I did a session in last year's Careers Week, and so I've tried not to exactly copy that, but to kind of complement it and perhaps add to it, because there are some new things since then. I'm just trying to click on. So managing your career in quality, which I'm subtitling the fuzzy and the focused, because I think there are different phases as you manage your career, and at any given point you might be in a fuzzy place, which is kind of colloquial for sort of blurred and less focused, and then at times you want to get really, really focused. But the key thing is you want to be managing your career in quality. And what I'm going to do is run through some kind of general sort of good practice things about sort of career management, and also relate those to the CQI and what the CQI can offer you by way of tools and support in your journey as a quality professional. So starting off, we like to think that a career looks like this, that you get a job, then you think, I want another job. So you change your job, and then you get a job and you change it, and you keep going up the ladder. And your career is this linear progression where you are getting to choose and determine what happens with your career. The reality is that careers are often a little bit like this. You get your job, you want to change your job, you get your next job, and then something unexpected happens. It could be that you're made redundant, your company gets taken over, your company goes bust, but that throws your plans into a mess, and maybe you take a job which is not where you're expected to be. And then sometimes we see opportunities that, again, we weren't expecting, that force you to take a sharp change of direction, maybe a little bit of a step back, but a different lane that you might be in. And then you progress from within that new position within your career. And then sometimes you think, actually, you want a different blend or portfolio of career, and maybe you slim it down, maybe you go part-time, maybe you go to a different mode of work and work-life balance. So careers are often unpredictable, and we need to be prepared for that, whether it's within quality or in any career that you may have. So you don't necessarily know, when you're in the job that you're in now, whether your next job will be something you're determining and it's onwards and upwards, or if it's completely out of your control, or whether you spot an opportunity that you can take, or whether you completely revise your career aspirations and go in a different direction. And the key question I want to ask at this point is, when do you start planning your career from within the job you're in now? When do you start planning your next move? Is it at this point? Is it towards the end you think, right, I've reached the end of the lifetime of this job, and now I want to move on and I'm going to start working on getting the next role? And I would say no, because I think that usually will put you in a position where actually there's more work to do. You discover that you're not getting the job that you're wanting, and that there's development that you need to do to be able to get to that role that you want. And I would contend that managing your career starts at the start of whatever job you're in. So if you move into a new job, nonetheless, you start the process of getting your next job from day one, or you should do. And periodically, you're putting work in throughout your time in that role. And then towards the end, when you know you're ready to make a move, you start focusing your activity and doing more, concentrating on getting that next role that you want. And within quality, there are lots and lots of opportunities. So early on, you might not have an idea of what you want to move into. That's why I'm talking about it being fuzzy. Nearer the time of moving, you want to get more focused. So we're talking about moving from fuzzy to focused. So when we're talking about starting fuzzy, the first thing I would say is you commit to your CPD, your continuing professional development. Whatever you do as a professional, you want to make sure you are up to date, at the very least, in your skills, knowledge, and behaviors. But if at all possible, be adding to your toolkit, be adding to your experience, your knowledge base, your skills. And that might not be with a particular job in mind, but all of it will be taking you onwards, moving you forwards. So start by committing to your CPD, make it a habit, whether you're required to do it by your membership grade or not. Commit to keeping your skills up to date and then pushing yourself a bit further. Now, if you're British and of a certain age, of my age, you will have been given a folder like this at school. And the idea was that you would, as you went through life, be gathering all of your achievements and your experiences in this folder. And if you're like me, you never did any of that. But they actually had a really good idea when they were talking about doing that. I think, firstly, you need to be reflecting constantly on what you're doing and what you're learning and what you're achieving. And very often we leave it until the point at which we're doing job applications to think back on what we've achieved, what we've done. And if you've been in a job for 3 to 5 years, it can be very hard to remember with clarity all of those things that you've done that are really strong pieces of evidence that you are good at what you do and about your capability. So do that reflection and then keep a record of success stories. Now, these are the sorts of things where when you go to a job interview and somebody says, can you give me an example of a time when you've dealt with an angry stakeholder and you've managed that process or something like that? You have got this portfolio of stories when you've dealt with tricky stakeholders or you've solved problems or you've managed projects, all these sorts of things that can be really nice success stories of this was the problem, the situation, this is what I did, these were the results. Keep those success stories, keep building that record of success stories, because when you come to apply for another job, those are the things that you're going to present to a potential employer as evidence of your ability and your capabilities. So don't leave that until the point at which you're doing a job application. Be building that record as you go. And you can keep a Word document, a Google document, or something like that, just so you've got that aide memoir to help you going forward. And the other thing I would say when we're talking about fuzzy and you haven't really got a clear idea of where you want to be, it's observe those above you or in other roles and see their skills that they have and the behaviors that they exhibit and see which of those you think would be useful for you to add to your skill set and for you to embody, because if they're the skills and behaviors of successful people, then those are the sorts of things that you want to be getting for yourself. So all of that is kind of stuff you can be doing whenever you are in your journey towards getting your next job. And we move generally from the fuzzy to the focused. And one of the things that helps you, and a little bit like success stories, is periodically update your CV, or in other parts of the world call it the resume. Because again, you don't want to be waiting until your point of application to be trying to remember all the things you've done and all the key dates and all the training you've been on and anything else that might be pertinent to a job application. And then the next phase is when you start to focus towards your next job. And you might not know what it is right now, but you might start to focus. And the first thing I would say is horizon scan and identify what's needed now in various different roles and opportunities, but also what might be needed in the future. And I've got a piece of research here that the World Economic Forum have done. I'll explain how this grid works. Along the bottom are the percentage of employers who said that certain skills were needed in now. So that was done in 2024, published it in 2025. And the vertical axis are the percentage of those employers who said they're going to be important in 5 years' time, in 2030. And what we see is that there are certain sets of skills that really are going to be increasing in significance in the next 5 years. And we're probably already seeing it, to tell the truth. So, for example, the top three that you can see there: AI and big data, networks and cybersecurity, technological literacy. It probably won't surprise you that employers think that those are going to become more and more important. But we've got the stats here that I've just summarized that AI is going to go up from 45% of employers thinking they're a core skill to 88% in 5 years' time. Networks 27% to 72%, environmental stewardship 22 to 58%, and user design and user experience from 26 to 51. Now, the report is available online. It goes into different countries, it goes into different industries, but there are definite trends here, and there are also some slightly worrying trends, perhaps, that you need to be aware of. Quality control, they're saying, is going to be less core, and attention to detail and reading, writing, and mathematics, which I summarized as the 3 R's, are going to become less core. Now, if you put in the context of the digital innovations that are happening, then what it's probably saying is they think there's going to be less reliance on these human skills and more in the digital skills. And I've heard it said that AI is not going to replace people in jobs, but people who can use AI are going to replace people who can't use AI in jobs. So if you're looking ahead to your next move, don't just think about the skills that you might need now. Think about the skills that are going to be needed in 2, 3, 4, 5 years' time, because those are the skills that our employers are already looking towards. So beginning to focus with your horizon scanning, and then scope out your future options, understand how the land lies. And if you want to stay in quality, we've got a very good example here, which is the career pathways map. That is on the CQI's website. Normally it's stacked vertically, but to get it on the slide, I've done it horizontally. But what you see is there are 6 different career paths or career streams within quality management, and they've got 4 tiers of progressive seniority. And the reality is you can progress in one of those from left to right, or you might find yourself in a role like quality technician and then think you want to go into a quality management role, or you might be in an audit role and you might want to move into compliance. So within quality, start scoping out the types of roles that might be available to you so you can understand what options are available and what might be an achievable step between where you are now and where you might want to get to. And if you want to know a lot more about this, there was a webinar earlier in the week as part of Quality Careers Week where a lot more detail was gone into on this. But it's a very useful tool for you, the career pathways map, to start understanding the opportunities that are available. And then once you know where you want to be heading, even in a broad sense, then start focusing your CPD and your learning in those directions. If you know you want to move from audit to compliance, then start getting the learning, the skills, the knowledge that will support you in that move. And we have a lot of resources here at the CQI that can help you with getting that knowledge, whether it's articles on the CQI's website or Quality Learning Hub, but lots of quality-focused CPD that's available to you. And then it's really, once you know the job you want to go for, it's about sharpening your focus, setting goals, setting your objectives of where you want to get to, maybe when you want to get there, and then putting in place the plans that will help you to get to where you want to be in your career. So if we look at this, again, this is a segment of that career pathways map. If you want to become a quality manager, maybe you've been an assistant quality manager, or maybe you've been in audit, and you want to get there, how do you know the skills, knowledge, and behaviors that you're going to need to be able to demonstrate, to be able to get that job? Well, within CQI, we've done a lot of work on what we call typical competence profiles. So in this case, we have, this is the profile for a quality manager. And if you know the CQI's profession map, you will know that we've got 5 competence areas, and we've got 18 key components of competence. In this case, for example, CA4 is customers in the marketplace within the context competence area, and 4 is the highest tier. And you can see there's a summary of these requirements there about leading, developing, and advising. And you'll be able to utilize that to give yourself an idea of where you need to be a high performer and where you need less experience. I'm going to try now and tab myself to the profession map just so you can see it. Oh, hang on, that won't work. Share my screen. So within the CQI's website, we've got the profession map. So you will be able to go and look at his customers in the marketplace, for example, and his tier 4, and you can see the knowledge and skills. In summary, these are key components of competence for all of the 5 competence areas and the key components that you can see below, like legal and regulatory. And if we go to governance, you can see you've got the 3 key components there. And you can start to self-assess against the profession map and against the typical competence profiles to understand where you are now and where you want to get to. And I'm going to pop back to the PowerPoint. So knowing the job you want, knowing the requirements of that role, they're going to help you then do something about getting the skills that you need to get there. So that's the profession map, as I said. We also have a profession map self-assessment tool. This is within the Quality Learning Hub. And Quality Learning Hub is where we have our webinar recordings. We also have our e-learning, but we have, as you can see at the top, the profession map self-assessment and the learning plan. So if you want to dive into a bit more detail about the specific knowledge and the specific skills and experience you're going to need, because those summaries were quite broad, then you can go into the profession map self-assessment. You see it organized by tier, so you know that the customers in the marketplace is in context at tier 4. So you go into the context section at tier 4 and you go to customers in the marketplace. And it gives you a lot of very specific competence statements that you can measure yourself against in your own kind of abilities. And that will help you build up a picture of the areas where you're strong and the areas where you need to improve. That will then help you build that CPD plan, that development plan to get you to where you want to be. Within the profession map itself, there are over 1,000 of these statements, and you don't need to read them all. Use the typical competence profile to guide you to the areas where you need to be, and then have a look at that particular competence area and that particular tier. And that will help you really plan your moves. And if you could demonstrate you've got all these competencies and these abilities, then that's going to help you when you present yourself at a job interview. So that's about doing that gap analysis. Where are you now? Where do you need to be? How are you going to get there? Focus your CPD, focus your learning. It can be anything from reading articles, attending webinars, doing e-learning, through to doing formal learning. Maybe it has a qualification. But if you don't know where those gaps are, then you're really going to struggle to get yourself to be the ideal candidate for a particular employer. Another thing to consider is our mentoring program. And one of the big strengths of being a CQI or a member is that we've got thousands of other members. We've got 20,000 members worldwide who can support you with your development. And it may be that you only need development in a particular skill, or it could be you want support in just generally managing your career and kind of upgrading your career progression. So the mentoring program is a really useful tool for you. You get to it through here, through the members area of the CQI website. There's a drop down in the members area, and you look at professional development, and then you can see that there's all sorts of things from Quality World Online, but then there's mentoring. And the way the mentoring scheme works is that you go into the mentoring platform. The first time you go in, it creates a profile for you. You put your name in. As you can see there, you put your job title and your company and what level you are within your company, your CQI or membership grade, the sector you're in, how many years you've been working in quality, your country, your preferred language, because we have people who are mentors and mentees that speak many different languages, and your mentoring preference of whether you want to be mentored face-to-face or online or a hybrid of the two. And then on the right-hand side, you can see that you can put in your support needs. Now, there's a drop-down like the one you can see on quality knowledge and skills. So you put your needs, and here I've put down mapping out your career path and getting your next role. And then your specific knowledge and skills, you can put in multiple requirements here. So you've got management of projects, management of staff, new technology, etc., etc. Or you can type in. And there's also a box that's hidden there behind the drop down where you can give a bit more information about where you are and where you want to be that will help you in finding your mentor. So once you've saved your profile, you then go to something which I liken to online dating, basically. So it's a search functionality. It's got your support needs and your quality knowledge and skills that you put in your profile, but you can also tweak that and put additional requirements in there, and you can specify the country the way you want a mentor from. And then here's an example of a mentor who matched. And just for the sake of data protection, I blanked out the picture of them and their name, but you can see that they're offering support. So just as a mentee says, I want support in this, they say the support they can offer. So they've got about CQI regrading, mapping careers, advocating for quality, process management, management of staff, all sorts of different things in there. And when you find somebody who you think matches with their abilities to your needs, you then put a request in for them to be your mentor. And if they accept it, then you progress to a mentoring relationship. And that can be a really supportive and enabling relationship that just gives you an outside perspective that helps you to get to where you want to be. So the final thing really is, once you've worked out what job you want, what sector, role, then you've got to act. And you've got to search for jobs. You've got to tailor your CV or your resume. You've got to practice your success stories, make sure that you can say them and they're fresh and natural and very to the point. And you want to practice your interview questions. And all of these things can be supported by our Quality Careers Hub, which I'm going to just switch to now, if you bear with me. So the Quality Careers Hub, I'll try and hide the thing. There we are. Quality Careers Hub. Again, it's a free benefit of membership for all CQI members. And the first time you log in, it gives you the option of doing a career self-assessment. So again, if you're starting fuzzy, if you're not really thinking about making a move right now, this can still help you assess where you are in your career and strengths and weaknesses. But I'm not going to look at that right now. So the first thing here is, if you are wanting a job, we've got search jobs and we've got quality jobs here. And I've got a pre-populated search, I believe. And I'm hoping now that it will load up. Where I've looked for quality manager in the UK, and it's giving a whole load of quality manager roles. It tells you when they were posted, and you can go in and you can view them and you can apply based on that. So if you're trying to find a job, then the Quality Careers Hub is a very, very good place to start. Actually, if you also want to advertise a vacancy, it's also a good place, because not only do we help people find jobs, we help people find employees. So if you're recruiting, then consider that. Now, we have a whole bunch of other tools here within the Quality Careers Hub that may be useful to you. So if you don't have a CV or resume, we've got a tool that will help you build one. It will ask you key questions and then it will compile it into a usable CV for you. If you've already got a CV or resume, you can upload it into CV 360 and utilizing AI tools, it will suggest how you can improve your CV to make it more attractive to potential employers. It will look at the language you use. It will check for accuracy. It will check to see whether it is, going to get you seen and noticed above everybody else who is applying. And one of the things I would say with your application, whether it's a CV or whether you're filling an application form, always try and tailor your application to the job you're applying for. Don't just send in a generic CV. Make sure you're highlighting the things that are most relevant to that particular role. So CV 360 can help you in getting that ready and fit for sending through to a potential employer. And very often they want a cover letter. And again, there's a cover letter builder where you can input the employer requirements and it can help match your cover letter to the requirements of the employer that you're applying for. There's an elevator pitch builder. That's your 60-second summary of who you are and what you're about. There is an interview simulator where you can be faced with some questions thrown at you by the computer and you're recorded responding to them. And then you can watch that back and see how you do and see how you come across, which can be really, really useful in assessing whether you are answering questions in a really effective and succinct manner. And we've got an interview in there which is about sustainability and quality, and we're looking to build some more which are quality specific, where you answer the questions, and then we've got model answers where it's suggested what you might have said in response to some of the questions. So practice your interview skills. There's nothing worse than finding the ideal job and the first time you're ever answering questions related to it is in the interview room and you realize that actually you're not doing yourself justice. Practice interview skills. And there's an assessment center tool if you're doing psychometric tests at an assessment center as well. We've got some self-development programs in here, which you can explore at your leisure. Likewise, the Career Pulse assessment, which was the thing that popped up when I first went in, and some various quizzes to identify where you might have needs that are not quality specific, but are general work skills needs. And then one of the big things, and again, this is where, maybe in the fuzzy phase of your career management, you're trying to boost your skills that are not quality specific, but more general. And this is a lot of e-learning about broader skills. So if I put communication, there are lots of e-learning resources on communication skills, managing relationships, listening. If you want presentation skills, it will be in here. If you wanted something on conflict management, there's resources here. So if you look down the left-hand side, there are hundreds of different things that are related. There's guidance on preparing for interviews, answering interview questions, etc. There's lots of resources on career management, job hunts, career skills, business skills, lots and lots of different things in there. And I'd encourage you to dip in and out of that, irrespective of whether you're looking for a new role, because this can help you help support you in your current role. So a very powerful tool that is free for CQI members. You get to it via the members area. So let me just refresh your memory on that. You log into CQI and you go to My Professional Development. Oops, and there we go. We've got mentoring, we've got videos and webinars, we've got Careers Hub, we've got the Quality Learning Hub. All of these are accessible from there. You just log in at the main CQI website into the members area and you can get access to these things. And I'm just going to double check that I haven't missed anything. So here's the typical competence profile section. On lots of information about the careers pathway map. You can download that, the typical competence profiles, how to use them, and then links to those profiles. So here's the quality manager one that I was talking about, and there's more information about how to use it. And so we've got plenty of information there available to you. And what have we got? Profession map, quality learning hub, mentoring. I think that's all of the key things. So if I go back to the presentation, no, there we are. So we've gone from the fuzzy, which is just keeping your knowledge, skills, behaviors updated, doing CPD, doing perhaps general work-related skill stuff, recording your experiences, recording your success stories. We've gone through looking at what's on the horizon, the skills that are going to be needed, not just now, but in the future, and the roles that exist in quality you might be interested in, and how you might be able to switch stream, and how you can use things like the typical competence profiles and the professional map to help you with that. And then we've got the tools that will help you get that job that you need. So to summarize the CQI resources for you, we've got the profession map and the self-assessment tool in the Quality Learning Hub. We've got the career pathway, typical competence profiles, quality careers hub, mentoring platform. One of the things that I didn't mention, which would be really useful to you, particularly if you're looking at switching industry, is that we have our professional networks. So we've got local networks where people from your local area can get together and you can network with them and attend events, etc., and just broaden your professional network. But we also have industry-specific networks, and we have topic-specific networks like audit. So it might be that you're in construction and you think, I wonder if I could get into nuclear. Join the CQI's nuclear network. They're free to join if you're a CQI or IRCA member. You can find out from people who already work in that industry what it's like, how the skills and knowledge that they might need. And you'll probably find that most of your skills are entirely transferable, and then there's some knowledge that you're going to need to learn, but that is the sort of thing you can learn once you get that role. But the CQI's professional networks help connect you with people who can help you with your career development in the same way as a mentoring platform can. And the final thing I would say on the CQI resources is we have the Elevate professional development newsletter, which will tell you what's happening in terms of new e-learning, new articles and professional development content, events and opportunities that are happening with our networks. And it's a really good way of you making sure that you don't miss anything that's coming out, anything that we're doing that might be able to support your professional development. So in summary, think about things, your career development, as being something you're working on all the time. You might only have very, very fuzzy goals. You might be really kind of unclear about where you want to go. You might have only just started a job and you might be thinking, oh, I'm not going to think about moving for 3 years. But as we found out, those sorts of things aren't always in your control. So be doing something all the time. Be updating your skills, be updating your CV, be recording those success stories. And then over time, as you mature in your role or as you start to think you want to make a move, then start focusing in on where you want to be and utilize all the tools that are available to you via the CQI. Set and refine your goals as quality professionals. You don't really need telling about things like SMART objectives, but how often do we apply those to ourselves? We're very good at applying them to projects and business, but actually apply that same focus to yourself. What's your goal? How are you going to get there? When do you want to get there by? Put those plans in place. Invest in yourself in the same way as you invest that sort of thinking, that time and energy in your work. Make sure you're reflecting. Be honest with yourself. Be honest about your own abilities and your knowledge. Do that self-assessment, because that's the only way you're going to be very sharply focused on what you need to do to improve to get to where you want to be. Commit to your CPD. This is not something that you're doing because you have to. You're doing something because it's in your own professional interest. It will help you develop. It will help you get the career you want. And use the tools that are available to you from the CQI. That's what they're there for. That's why we've developed them. That's why we provide them. They're part of your CQI membership. So make the most of them. And best of luck. hopefully that's been of interest and of use. I'm happy to answer any questions anyone might have on anything specific or general that popped up there. Katie. I'm looking.
Okay, yes, thank you, Gareth. Well, Gareth and I should just clarify, we are in the same room. So if there's any kind of weird eye contact situation, or we're looking up at each other, that is why. So just to make that clear. So we've had a bunch of questions come through, which is brilliant. Just be mindful, please, that we need the Q&A box for any questions to make sure that we see them. So don't pop them in the chat because they may get lost. So let's start with, I guess, this one here from Valentin, who I know messaged us earlier to let us know that they were here. So does the CQI recognise internal training and qualifications provided by your current employer, or external certifications such as those from BSI as part of our professional recognition or membership pathway with the CQI?
Okay, good question. So there's two angles to that. The first thing is, when it comes to CPD, the CQI CPD program is not one where we prescribe hours or points or even specific topics. That's about you doing the things that you need to do to get to where you want to be. So you set your CPD objectives in the members area. There's a section for that, for setting CPD objectives and planning them and undertaking them and then reflecting on them. So we do a plan, do, check, act approach to that. So when it comes to just general development, we recognize anything that gives you the value you're looking for. When it comes to things like CQI grades, the practitioner grade has a requirement of a certain amount of formal learning. Now, if it's provided externally by the likes of BSI or a formal training partner, then that's not a problem. We'd need the documentation and the evidence to support that, but that's not a problem. When it's internal training, it depends whether it's formal training or not, whether it's like a formally structured program with learning outcomes and an assessment at the end of it, or whether it's kind of more ad hoc on the job training. But the reality is, a lot of very large employers will put people on internal training programs and have internal courses, and there'll be some way of verifying that people have completed and passed it. And if you've got that evidence, and if you can show it's quality related, then the CQI will accept that when it comes to CQI, the practitioner grade. When it comes to the chartered member grade, that's not really about qualifications. The practitioner, the chartered professional grade is about your competence and your ability to do the job. So at that point, it's about you evidencing that you exhibit the competencies related to the profession map at the required levels, and having done it in reality rather than having theoretical knowledge. So it's less about qualifications at that point and much more about the actual evidence that you've done things. Hopefully that answers the question.
I hope so too. Thank you for that. That's a really interesting question. Another one, we've got lots of different questions about lots of different platforms. So in the time that we have, we'll try and get a broad
happy to dive in and demonstrate any of those if needed.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Now this question I know has also come up in sessions earlier in the week, and it hasn't been quite the right place for us to address it. So perhaps here might be no pressure, Gareth. But as somebody who's currently in between jobs at the moment, the biggest challenge they're finding is getting past kind of AI software or software that kind of automatically skims CVs looking for keywords, key phrases.
Yeah.
This attendee has said that they have the skills and the qualifications, but that doesn't seem to matter when this software isn't set up to match. Now, is that something that our Careers Hub CV Builder can address, or is there any other tools that we can recommend to support this person with that?
It's a very good question because, yeah, large employers are getting hundreds of applications, and very often they will use a piece of software to do an initial sift. And that software is very usually looking for keywords that will almost trigger it, that you're speaking the right sort of language, you're talking about the right sort of things that they're looking for. So firstly, make sure your application is aligned in terms of language with the language in the person specification and the job description. If they're using certain phrases to describe a piece of work, use that phrase. Use positive terminology and phraseology. But I would say, yes, use the CQI's Quality Careers Hub and run your CV and maybe your covering letter through that to see what it makes of it, see what improvements it recommends, because we cannot entirely predict what terms an employer will think are the key ones for them. That's a fool's errand, because it could be any organization in the world, and English might not be the first language, but the software does know where the buzzwords that do tend to kind of get recognized by the AI tools. So long and the short of it is, it is tricky. And when you're out of work, it can be really hard to know how you pitch your application and what language to use. So the first thing I would say is try and mirror the language they're using, because that's probably the search terms that they will plug into their AI. But secondly, yeah, run your documentation through the CV assessment or CV 360, because that will point out anything that it thinks is weak in your application. And the stronger you can make it, the better. But it is tricky. The other thing I would say is, and I don't have a huge evidence base for this, but there is a temptation for people to use things like ChatGPT to create stuff for your applications, and I can see why people would use it, but I do think software is very good at spotting things that have been created by AI. So you want to make sure it still is your words, your experience that's been being portrayed there, because otherwise you might find that there's dozens of very similarly phrased pieces of content in applications, and you're not standing out. So still try and remain authentic to yourself. But yeah, I've been in your position. I've been out of work. I've been trying to work out what the magic is for the algorithm, and it's just hard. But all I can say is that our tools might well help you with that.
Great, thank you. And I hope that answers that question. Kind of sticking, I guess, with the language theme. So we've got a question here from Samuel, firstly, who thanks you for the presentation. And there are kind of two parts to it. So I'm just going to read it out as it's been written here. So Samuel says, following my move from the Middle East, I've observed that the UK marketplace has a much greater emphasis on quality assurance systems and processes, while my expertise is in core quality control management. This seems to be a common theme in job descriptions and in webinars. Can you speak to this discrepancy in focus between QA and QC? Perhaps not, but what is the CQI's role in supporting people who are kind of moving from country to country and need to navigate this shift in terminology and focus to successfully integrate into the UK quality profession?
Wow.
There was a lot there. If you need to repeat any of that, I can go back. But
it's a big question. Fundamentally, the CQI's, the UK's kind of culture is it's interesting, your perspective on it, and I probably would not disagree, because there are many people in improvement roles that don't necessarily see themselves in quality. So there has traditionally been that focus on QC and QA. In terms of making that shift, I think, again, I would say the first thing would be to go to the profession map, go and look at the assurance section in the profession map, work out, and particularly the self-assessment tool that's within the Quality Learning Hub, and start working out where the mismatch is between you and what we say our quality assurance skills, behaviors, and knowledge. Because if you don't understand the landscape, you're not familiar with it, you come from a different quality culture and organizational culture, that's one area where you can start benchmarking yourself against what we recommend, and you might be going for sort of a management role for the sake of argument. So you're going to be looking at tier 3 in assurance, and you probably want to be looking at governance as well. So go in and measure yourself against that, because that's one of the key things we've done as an organization, is put a lot of research into identifying the knowledge, skills, and behaviors that are needed at different levels, and now with the typical competence profiles in different roles. So it's kind of a research piece, it's kind of a self-assessment piece, and then it's about filling those gaps and thinking, okay, if I am coming from a sort of more of a quality control background and I want to get more broadly into quality assurance, then where can I get the training and the knowledge that I need? And it may well be that we've got some e-learning. It may well be that we've got webinars you can watch, or it may be that you could go on one of the CQI's training courses or one of the courses provided by our training partners that will help get you up to speed. And then the other thing would be network with other quality professionals in this country. So that's one of the big benefits of the CQI is the ability to leverage the experience of others. So wherever you are in the CQI, there's a likelihood that we've got a local network close to you that you can attend and network with people and meet them and ask them questions and get their real life experience. And we've also got things like our audit network, where you can meet with people who are involved in that aspect of assurance and find out how the land lies with them. So we can't deliver a personalized service to you right now, I'm afraid, but what we can do is give you a lot of the information and tools and connections to people that will help you get to where you want to be. But absolutely appreciate that if you come from a different country with a different quality culture, and you move here, and there are all sorts of things that everybody else is familiar with that you've never come across before in terms of ways of doing things, that can be a little disorientating. You don't know how to get to grips with it. And I'd say use the tools we have available, connect with people, and yeah, I'm sure you'll get there.
Perfect. And just kind of following on from that, because I've just responded with a typed message to somebody who asked something similar, but just about our networks and people who do want to get involved. And again, this has come up throughout the week. What are our networks? How can people get involved and get in touch with the team?
Well, we've got all sorts of different types of networks, and we're about to announce a kind of a new model for it as well. So new opportunities, but globally, we've got about 400 volunteers. So the networks are member-led groups that are either based around a particular geographical location. So in the UK, we've got about 27 different local groups. We've got some international ones like Hong Kong, for example. So you've got the geographical ones. Then you've got industry-specific networks, which are broadly kind of international in scope. So we've got things like pharmaceuticals, construction, nuclear, defense, rail. So we've got lots of these specific industry-based networks, and with those, you tend to find that you've got groups that they're keeping you up to date with what's happening within that industry and the skills and competencies needed within that industry. They'll often run CPD events and do briefings. Sometimes they'll conduct research. Sometimes they'll feed into consultations. But those networks are very much focused on supporting not just the people who work within any particular industry, but people who want to get into those industries, because they're always looking for new talent to come into the pipeline. But also they support the CQI. They help tell us what's going on in different industries and what's needed, and help us to identify support needs. And then the third group is topic-based ones, for want of a better phrase. I'm sure there's a better phrase than that coming. But that'll be things like we've got the Deming network, which focuses on the kind of the Deming ethos and quality improvement. We've got an audit network. We've got a digital transformation network. And they're particularly for people who are interested in one of those topics broadly. And you can either volunteer, or you can take advantage of what they produce. For example, our audit network are doing podcasts. They're doing a technical series looking at the future of audit. There'll be all sorts of stuff related to standards revisions coming in the next year or so, and they'll be involved in that. So our networks, both geographical, industry, and topic, offer lots of opportunities to get support, but also to get involved and meet people. And the new thing, which we haven't announced yet, but we will be announcing very, very shortly, is the ability for people to form what we call micro networks, which are probably too small to have like a committee and kind of formal programs of activity, but a way of people getting together. So if you're in a geographical area where there might be 3 or 4 other quality professionals in the CQI, it's an opportunity for you to meet them and network with them. If you're working in an area of activity and industry where we don't currently have a network, but you want to speak to people who are working in your area, then we can try and put you in touch with those and you can network with them. And maybe over time, these grow into more formal, more ambitious networks, but at the very least, we are putting you in touch with like-minded people. So we're going to be releasing information about that in due course, but that will really widen massively the potential for members networking with members and members supporting one another and delivering value to one another. And all of this is free for any CQI member or IRCA member to take advantage of.
Brilliant, thank you. We've got a few minutes left, so we'll try and rattle through some of these remaining questions quite quickly. So we've got a question here about the mentoring platform that you spoke about. And obviously there are different ways that you can kind of filter to try and find an appropriate mentor for you. And we've got somebody who is describes themselves as having an intermediate level of spoken English because they're not a native English speaker. And the ones that they found so far that meet their needs are all English speakers. How is there anything that we can do to mitigate that at the moment, or any plans to do so in the future? I'm not sure what the first language is of this attendee.
I understand the problem. You know, CQI is largely an English-speaking network. Most people, you know, it's the language in which we do business. But the reality is we've got members in 100 countries and language levels differ. With the mentoring platform, everybody who is a mentor is a volunteer. So they're doing it because they want to get something out of it. They want to put something back into the profession and help others. So we can't proactively kind of sort of force anybody to help anybody else. So if there may well be gaps between, you know, people who want mentoring, who have a particular language that's their first language, there might not be somebody available who can help with that. I would hope that at the outset, if you do form a mentoring relationship with someone for whom English is their first language, that's one of the first things you could start to address is how are we going to build this mentoring relationship? And there are programs now where, and I think I stand to be corrected, but I think Zoom might be one of them, where you can have translation that goes on whilst you're speaking to somebody, or a simultaneous translation. And it could be that you might want to arrange to have your meetings like that, so that there is some translation going on screen whilst you're speaking, or that you've got a transcription running so that afterwards you can always run that through a translator and kind of reflect on what's been said to you. So there are potentially ways around it. What we don't have, and it's an idea that's interesting and we might want to look at, is kind of a bank of people with particular language skills that might plug any gaps. So it's a question that I will take away and think about what we might be able to do. Maybe we might be able to put a call out and see, are there any, for the sake of argument, French speakers who are wanting to mentor people, because we've got some French speaking people who would like to do the mentoring relationship in French. We might be able to do that. So I'd encourage you to let us know what your language is, and we'll see what we might be able to do. But I can't promise anything, because it really is about whether the mentor exists in terms of, you know, the language profile, the skills and knowledge profile that you're looking for.
Great, thank you. I hope that answers that question. Have we got time to squeeze in one more?
Yeah, go on.
We've got two questions asking similar things, so I'll try and kind of condense them into one. But we've got both Usman and Tala, who are both outlined that, you know, they have very specific experience in certain roles. Usman's recently passed his lead auditor exam, and Tala is working on their first quality role as SHEQ advisor. What practical steps can they take if they do want to? I mean, a lot of it has been covered in this session, but in terms of wanting to move into a full-time quality role, it may be something that actually the career pathways map can help with. But in terms of their career progression, what might that look like, and which tools would you suggest to kind of kickstart that journey?
Yeah, I'd certainly suggest looking at the career pathway map and the typical competence profiles to get a sense of what might be within reach. The other thing would be to try and find another quality professional who can tell you about their journey and their development and their perspective on how you could get to where they are. But it is tricky without knowing a particular kind of portfolio of knowledge and where you are, and if you're relatively new. I think the key thing, if you are new, say you're in a HESQ role and you've got a vague idea of where you might want to move to, look at the profession map, look at the typical competence profiles, maybe do a self-assessment, and work out those areas where you think you might get the greatest benefit from developing. I'd also say, and this is one thing that I probably would have wanted to have said earlier in the presentation, is it's really good to be inquisitive and to kind of want to learn. And even if it's not relevant to your role, if you're open about learning about new things related to quality that might be only tangentially related to your role at the moment, then that's going to help you as well. It might open your mind. But we don't necessarily have formal training courses that lead you to each of these typical competence profiles. So the reality is identify where you might like to get to and take that role, look at the requirements in terms of competence, skills, behaviors, etc. Do the gap analysis, pursue the CPD that will help to start filling and plugging those gaps. And then over time, there might be other opportunities that emerge that take you further and quicker towards your destination. But it's quality is not a profession like some other charter professions where there's a very linear path that you follow and you just build and build and you get to where you're going. With quality, there are all sorts of different routes you can take and different roles you can take. So it really is about you. It's about the role you're going for, the gap between the two, and how you fill that gap.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Gareth. I think there have been a lot of, and Tala's just addressed your response to that question to say that, and as has Usman. So I think we've answered that for them both, but brilliant. I think that's all we have got time for today. That was a lot of really great insightful questions. So thank you all very much for your contributions to that. A couple of people have asked, yes, the recording will be available. Of course, it will be available on YouTube to non-members, and it will be as available through the members area to our members. We will send an email out on Monday next week to let you know when the recording and a copy of the slides are available to you all. Just a reminder that as you leave the session, you will be asked to give us some feedback on whether this has been useful or not. So please do let us know what you think, because this helps us to shape future sessions and make sure that what we're delivering is useful for you. So yeah, I think that's where we'll leave it then today. Thank you so much, Gareth, for your time, for your knowledge, for fielding those many questions. And we hope that everybody has a lovely rest of the day.
Yeah,
Thank you
very
so
much. Bye-bye.